all of us should never lose our courage, especially when we're confronted with the evil of those who want to control this world. Because they want to control this world, and we have to make it possible for them to defeat themselves, for them never to be able to come close to the people who love freedom and justice.
Cuando hablamos de la naturaleza, no estamos hablando solamente de los árboles, no estamos hablando solamente de los animales, estamos hablando de los sujetos que han cuidado por milenios la naturaleza, que son los pueblos indígenas, que son los
Mira que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será para mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Hey, what's up everybody? So I just got off of work, tired as hell after a long day on the construction site, but now I'm gonna head over to Los Angeles Trade Tech College where a significant event is gonna take place. We're gonna hear two amazing speeches by revolutionaries, one from Puerto Rican, aka Puerto Rico, and another from Honduras, where my family is from. The first, Oscar López Rivera, was a leader of the FALN, Las Fuerzas Armadas de Liberación Nacional in Puerto Rico, which fought against US imperialism, fought for the liberation of the Puerto Rican people against subjugation, against colonialism. Puerto Rico remains the last and oldest colony of US imperialism, and Oscar López Rivera is somebody who was locked up for decades in prison simply for fighting for the rights of his people against empire, fighting for representation, fighting for sovereignty. And he is somebody who, for me, has been really inspirational, somebody who has been active in the Latin American and Caribbean diaspora, but also involved in struggles back in Puerto Rico. And also Berta Cáceres, the daughter of the late Berta Cáceres, an indigenous Lenca activist who was murdered in 2016 in Honduras for standing up to the major hydroelectric dams that were being carried out by big capital, that were being pushed by the right-wing narco-terrorist government that ruled Honduras for 12 years following the 2009 coup that was carried out by the US, carried out by the Democrats under the Barack Obama administration. Berta Cáceres Zúñiga is an activist, even though her mom was murdered, even though she's received countless death threats, even though she's been facing tremendous challenges left and right. She's somebody who continues to fight and continue to struggle against this system of monopoly capitalism, of neoliberalism that values profits over people, that values profits over land, that values profits over the native traditions and customs of indigenous peoples like the Lenca people. So both of these individuals will be speaking tonight at LA Trade Tech College. I just got off of work. I'm gonna go ahead there and try to shoot some video, try to do as best of a job as I can to capture what they're saying. Hope you enjoy it. We're gonna head out and check out these thoughts.
The next comrade who's speaking almost requires no introduction, because his name alone signifies the resistance of a whole island, but I would say the spirit of resistance of the Caribbean peoples for their sovereignty, for their independence, and their national liberation. I want a round of applause that can be heard not in the White House. I want it to be heard in Puerto Rico. Oscar López Rivera. ¡Viva Puerto Rico libre! ¡Viva Puerto Rico libre! ¡Que viva Puerto Rico libre!
I want to bring you a greeting from Puerto Rico, the beautiful, beautiful island that so many of us love, so many of us are willing to give our lives for Puerto Rico. I have been a very fortunate person in this world because I have survived a lot of things that others have not been able to survive. Puerto Rico is a place that the United States government chose to colonize. And ever since then, the United States government has tried to destroy Puerto Rico. And no one can deny how terrible the United States government is, especially in those areas in the world where he can find and push hatred and fear. But none of us can allow hatred and fear to enter our hearts and our minds. Our hearts and our minds should be full of love for everyone, for everything. Everything that is on this planet should be part of each one of us. We should not separate ourselves from what makes us humans and how important it is for us to maintain ourselves as humans, not follow the example of the evil people who represent the United States government. We cannot tolerate that kind of individual in this world. No matter where we are in this world, we are human beings that love life, love the person next to us, love our family, love everyone who fights and struggles for what is right and for what is needed in this world. I want to share a moment in my life that I never expected to face. I was 21 years old when I got a letter saying that I should report to the center where we were supposed to give ourselves into the military. And when I received the letter, it said, if you do not report to the induction center on the specified day, you can face up to 5 years in federal prison. And at that particular moment, I had a choice. I chose not to go to prison. And it was difficult. It was not an easy decision. But once I entered the military, I knew that I had my hands full. I knew that my life was in trouble, that my life could be eliminated any moment. And one day I arrived in Vietnam. I will never forget. I was trained for seven months. The only training that I received from the United States government was to kill. Nothing else. Whether it was in Fort Knox, Kentucky, or whether it was in Fort Hood, Texas. Right after that, I ended up in Vietnam. And for some reason, I knew that Vietnam was going to survive. Even then, when I arrived in Vietnam, I don't know why. I had no idea why I felt that Vietnam would not be defeated. And I spent 1 year, let me make it correct. I was almost 2 years in Vietnam. And on those 2 years, I faced everything that can be faced. I faced all the pain that a human being can face. Especially, I had not been in Vietnam a month when guys who were with me were killed. And there is something that I had never heard before, and that is what they call a sucking sound. And that's a person who has been shot on his chest and he's dying, and all you can hear is that air and that air. And I remember how painful it was for me just to see that human being very close to me suffering like that. And I was thinking, why are we sent here just to be killed and to kill probably? And for almost 2 years, I chose to try to arrive in the United States, be with my family. I chose to say that I wanted to see if I could be released. It was 87 days after I had completed the demanded time that I had to serve. And the reason that I chose that was because if I arrived in the United States with less than 90 days, they had to release me. And I arrived in the United States when I was released. I came home with a promise, and that promise was to find out as much as I could about Vietnam. Because when I was sent to Vietnam, I knew nothing about Vietnam. But when I was in Vietnam, I learned a hell of a lot about Vietnam. I learned a lot, but I did not know what Vietnam really was. I was just thinking and doing things, and once I'm home, I felt that I could definitely feel that sense that the Vietnamese people will not be defeated, that Vietnam was not going to be defeated by the United States government. And the reason that I was able to figure out why the United States government could not defeat Vietnam was because all the literature that I was able to put together about Vietnam, I learned how courageous, how full of love, how strong their minds, how strong their hearts were. Because if we take two persons, Ho Chi Minh and Von Giap, we take those two men alone, and they probably could have defeated the United States government. The two of them were so creative, so full of energy, so full of love, that they definitely made it possible for them to go from the north to the south. And at that time, France thought that they had control over Vietnam. The French were as arrogant as the Americans. And all of a sudden, they started bringing everything that they could south. And they surrounded Dien Bien Phu. And little did they know that in 40 days, they were going to be running away from Vietnam. One of the elements is courage. One of the elements was the courage that they had, the love that they had. And I think that all of us should never lose our courage, especially when we're confronted with the evil of those who want to control this world. Because they want to control this world, and we have to make it possible for them to defeat themselves, for them never to be able to come close to the people who love freedom and justice. Right. Nothing can stop us as long as our hearts are full of love, full of energy, full of not allowing any bit of hatred to enter our hearts. And we can go forward. We can show them. And I'm hoping that we will be able to show them that we will not be defeated, that they cannot defeat us, that they cannot erase us from this planet. I definitely believe that Puerto Rico will be an independent and sovereign nation. I believe that when the United States chose to invade and occupy Puerto Rico, they thought that they would be able to wipe us out of the earth. Because they came in to Puerto Rico with one mission, and that was to definitely take over Puerto Rico any way they could. If we look at the first thing that the United States government does once it comes into Puerto Rico, once it occupies and invades Puerto Rico, one of the things that they thought was that we were weak, that we were stupid, that we could not do anything. The person who defined who we were said the following: Puerto Ricans are a mongrel race, that we were incapable of self-government, that we were incapable of developing anything worthwhile on earth, that we were incapable of doing anything but be sloppy, be dirty, be nothing but almost dirt. And little by little, as long as they have been in Puerto Rico, little by little, we have shown them that it is impossible for the United States government to eliminate us, to defeat us. They have chosen right now in Puerto Rico, if we go to Puerto Rico, we have a lot of pain in us because the United States government has done something that we did not expect them to do. In 2007, one day I heard a man say, Puerto Rico is for sale. I was in prison at the time. And my heart palpitated when I heard the voice of that man saying that. And I was dying to come out of prison. And I knew that my time was not that far away. And 10 months later, I arrived in Puerto Rico. And as soon as I was able to move around Puerto Rico, the first thing that I started doing was to look for this man and his cohorts. This man was and still is probably a billionaire. And along with him, there were little by little more and more billionaires coming into Puerto Rico. And more of them were buying land in Puerto Rico. They were buying the houses that they could buy, beautiful houses, but also buying the houses of the poor. Because somehow they were able to get poor people out of their houses, and all of a sudden, those houses were occupied by people. They fixed them. They made them viable. Some of them were turned into Airbnb houses to bring the people that usually go to Puerto Rico to enjoy the beauty of Puerto Rico. And little by little, they thought, and I still say that they think that they can control Puerto Rico, but right now, they have purchased mostly half of the land in Puerto Rico. And that the conditions in Puerto Rico, if they have it their way, the condition of Puerto Rico is that they will definitely occupy Puerto Rico without Puerto Ricans. Because I have heard people in Puerto Rico say Puerto Rico would be more beautiful if there were no Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. I have heard that. Now, one of the things that we are sure is that Puerto Rico will be safe. Puerto Rico will definitely be that independent and sovereign nation in the Caribbean, and that Puerto Rico is the promised land for all Puerto Ricans. There are 6 million Puerto Ricans inside the United States because they have been pushed and ended up in the United States. Even now, they've been pushing. Right now, we have evidence of those people who are buying houses in Puerto Rico, pushing them out. So now is the moment for us. Now is the moment for Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico to definitely defeat the United States government, and we can do it. We have to adhere to the fact that solidarity has to be reciprocal. All of us should be sharing. All of us should never allow ourselves to be all by ourselves. So thank you, and I'm hoping that this place will continue to be the place that will unite all of us and bring us together.
¡Viva Puerto Rico libre! We are not victims.
No.
Never. But we are united by the crimes of the imperialists. We have a common enemy in defense of the planet and in defense of our people.
Absolutely.
Which is why I'm beyond honored to welcome a dear comrade who's grown up in the movement. From a young age, she walked the same path with her mother. Our dear Berta Cáceres. When we say Berta Cáceres, you say presente. Berta Cáceres. Berta Cáceres. Berta Cáceres. We say not 1 minute of mourning and silence, a lifetime of struggle.
That's right.
We welcome Berta Zu, leader of COPINH, leader of the indigenous movements of Honduras, courageous young voice for the future of our continent.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todas las personas presentes y bueno, un honor para mí poder compartir esta mesa con estas personas que yo admiro mucho también. Bueno, yo creo que muchas de las personas presentes y de los pueblos que estamos aquí, pues quisiéramos contar historias bonitas, pero lamentablemente nuestras historias son muy duras y difíciles, pero bueno, estamos aquí en pie y creo que somos todas y todas de alguna manera víctimas de este sistema de muerte, pero también las víctimas activas que incomodamos, que hablamos y que estamos en la lucha forjando también un futuro mejor para todas y todas. Bueno, yo quería comentar que pues si hay algo a lo que los capitalistas tienen mucho miedo es a que se les acabe el petróleo. Y bueno, eso ha desatado también muchas guerras en todo el mundo, pero también ha desatado las guerras para ese mismo sistema, está tratando de encontrar otras fuentes de energía para poder sostenerse, porque este sistema no puede vivir sin energía. Y bueno, eso es lo que también muchas comunidades indígenas, campesinas y de todo el sur global, sobre todo muchas comunidades del sur global, estamos viviendo, que es esa llamada transición energética, donde este sistema está tratando de sobrevivir, este sistema que está en crisis está tratando de sobrevivir, y esa convulsión de la crisis del sistema que se refleja en las crisis sociales, que se refleja también en la crisis que tiene la naturaleza. Y bueno, es muy importante que nosotras hablemos también del tema de la energía, porque las empresas incluso están hablando de las energías, están hablando de las energías verdes, están hablando y están mercantilizando todo lo que pueden, incluso la naturaleza. Y nosotras que venimos de los pueblos del sur global decimos, esas no son energías limpias, son energías también bañadas en la sangre de nuestros pueblos, y por eso son energías limpias. Bueno, evidentemente estamos viviendo una crisis climática que claramente es de la preocupación de todas las personas, incluso de la gente del sur, pero para nosotros es muy importante desmitificar todo ese comercio que hay en torno a las falsas energías verdes, porque con esa excusa están implantando un montón de represas hidroeléctricas en mi pueblo, pero también así en muchos otros pueblos, bajo la lógica que se planta también la minería bajo la lógica que han venido siendo desplazados los pueblos. Entonces yo creo que es muy importante para nosotras hablar que cuando hablamos de la naturaleza no estamos hablando solamente de los árboles, no estamos hablando solamente de los animales, estamos hablando de los sujetos que han cuidado por milenios la naturaleza, que son los pueblos indígenas, que son los animales. Y bueno, es para mí inherente, si hablamos del cuidado de la naturaleza, hablar de los derechos de estos pueblos, porque ahora se habla mucho, ¿verdad?, de la naturaleza, pero no se habla de quienes la están cuidando. Incluso se están privatizando los bosques, se le están quitando derechos a las comunidades de usar el bosque. Ahora incluso se está vendiendo el oxígeno, que era algo impensable. Hablábamos hace años, yo cuando era todavía pequeña, hablábamos de las guerras del agua o las guerras por el agua. Ellos me decían, no, ¿cómo van a ser las guerras por el agua? Y las guerras son por el petróleo, las guerras son por otras cosas. Pero estamos ya viendo, ¿verdad?, las guerras por el agua, y decir que esa crisis climática también nos está trayendo la crisis de la violación a los derechos. Bueno, yo contar simplemente, ¿verdad?, que para nosotras la causa de mi madre, nuestra compañera Berta Cáceres, es emblemática, no solamente porque ella fue asesinada por defender el río Hualcarque, por defender los derechos del pueblo Lenca, por ser una referente de una mujer indígena valiente, una mujer también que nombra a los que acechan a los pueblos, y eso es algo que este sistema no está dispuesto a tolerar. Honduras ha tenido grandes oleadas migratorias junto también al pueblo centroamericano, mesoamericano, y Biden ha venido promoviendo un plan para intentar detener las oleadas migratorias que se llama el Plan Biden para los pueblos de Centroamérica, que es dar dinero a el Triángulo Norte, que es Honduras, Guatemala y El Salvador, y seguir financiando a los bancos corruptos como los que han participado en el crimen de nuestra compañera Berta Cáceres, financiar a empresas saqueadoras de los territorios de los pueblos indígenas, es dar más dinero para lo mismo. Y bueno, nosotras también robándonos un poco la consigna de la revolución será feminista o no será, también decimos la revolución será migrante o no será, y sabemos que hay una presión muy fuerte muy fuerte de también la lucha que está haciendo también la comunidad migrante, porque si Biden o si también mucha gente aquí en Estados Unidos era indiferente a qué era Honduras, a qué pasaba, a qué es lo que están haciendo sus políticas imperiales, ahora sí lo saben y están preocupados y preocupadas por lo que está pasando. Y aunque sabemos que eso no es una respuesta, sí decir que en este nuevo contexto que tiene Honduras, donde nuestro proyecto es desmantelar ese proyecto dictatorial que hemos tenido en nuestro país, porque no se desmantela de la noche a la mañana, y eso lo hemos aprendido de la lucha de todos los pueblos. Así que decir que hemos aprendido que esa lucha va a seguir, y que los pueblos indígenas que hemos luchado por nuestra autonomía vamos a tener que seguir también haciendo grandes esfuerzos para desmantelar todo lo que significan los proyectos antidemocráticos, antisoberanos, militaristas, y también que forman parte de ese sistema imperialista. Así que decir que aunque no podemos venir a contar lindas historias, sí vamos a seguir contando de nuestras resistencias que siguen viviendo, porque así nos han enseñado todos los pueblos que, a pesar de más de 500 años de colonialismo, seguimos aquí presentes en esta lucha. Muchas gracias.
Como